And I wonder if we could understand from both of your perspectives how you see the collective trauma impacting individuals. And as a mindfulness teacher, how you view that and how you work with it in yourselves and with the people who come to your trainings.
Well, I'm inclined to start really personally and say that with all that's going on in our world, the world's crises, I can feel my nervous system. There's this kind of background hum of it can be agitation at times, and sometimes it's powerless, and sometimes I feel anger. So I can feel it. I can feel it moving through, and partly depends on how good my news diet is. But, you know, what I've found is this, that when I pause and I bring these practices, this medicine of mindfulness and compassion to what's going on, what I find is under, let's say, my anger, because that comes up, I feel I kind of come into a grieving, like there's something I'm really, really grieving, some losses in our world that I'm really grieving. I find that under anger, there's always something I care about. And then when I get to that, then that unlayering brings up a huge tenderness. And then I'm able to respond to my daily life and my world in a much more wise way. And I'm also thinking about one man who's really horrified and distraught about Ukraine, and because his friends there, he's tracking daily. And for him, the breath, just long, deep breathing, coming back just this moment, just this moment, just this moment. And then loving kindness prayers. And now he's, raising money for food kitchens in Ukraine. But it's been the trauma that he was feeling has kind of been shifted into really wise action. And I'll share one more example, Tami, because it really struck me. And this is a woman I worked with a few months ago. And she takes a subway and then a train every day to work. And it's through the inner city, and it's a lot of crime and violence, and of course it gets worse and worse as summer approaches. So she's feeling a lot of fear. Just that background violence is just creating fear in her nervous system. So for her, being able to name what comes up, hold it with self-compassion. She started doing metta on the train for everybody else on the train, and feeling this sense of this shift from her kind of a scared self to a we're in it together. And that's what I found is most helpful for people when the trauma is really coming up inside them. Trauma feels like disconnection. And these practices bring us back into a kind of a sense of belonging to each other in our world that's really healing.
Jack?
Yeah, I also worked a little bit with some people in Ukraine, among other places, in Myanmar and places of war and conflict. And I want to remind them that we have these inner resources, even in the midst of trauma, that Thich Nhat Hanh, who died recently and was such a kind of lodestar of wisdom for us, said when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained centered and calm, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone on that boat to survive. And there's some way in which, through these practices, I can invite people to remember their courage and their capacity. And even if, as Tara says, it's as simple as this moment, this day, one breath at a time. Can you take one mindful breath? How does that feel? All of a sudden, you start to get grounded in a deeper truth than the changing trauma or circumstances. Remember that your ancestors, that human beings have lived through hard times, and there are ways to do this that carry the best of your spirit. And people get really transformed in being reminded of this.